First principles thinking is the most talked about skill in innovation, but it's also the most misunderstood. Here's what it actually looks like. Most decisions around products, technologies get made by analogy. Someone says, oh, this is how we've always done it, or this is what the market expects, or this is what the competition is doing. The room all nods and agrees, and the decision gets made. Buried somewhere in the middle of that is an assumption nobody bothered to check. First principle thinking is the discipline of identifying the assumptions before the market finds it for you. And by the end of this episode, you'll have the tools to strip away any problem down to what's actually true and build answers that hold even when the boardroom is watching and the clock is running. What is first principles thinking? First principles thinking is the practice of breaking a problem down to its fundamental truths, then building your solution up from what actually holds, not from industry convention, not from what worked last time, from what's actually true at the problem in front of you. The alternative is reasoning by analogy, doing what worked before, doing what competitors do, doing what the category expects. Analogy is faster, and in most cases, it's actually usually right. But it fails badly when the thing that used to be true stops being true and nobody notices. So, why do assumptions go unchecked? Let me take you back to 2005. HP CEO Mark Hurd stopped me in the hallway of Building 20 in Palo Alto and was just hammering me on HP's R&D funding. The metric he focused on was R&D as a percentage of revenue. He wanted HP's ratio to look more like Acer's. Obviously, I pushed back. I argued we should be comparing ourselves to Apple, not Acer. Mark didn't hesitate. His reply was, "We are not Apple, and we never will be." What stopped me in that moment wasn't the disagreement. It was the certainty. Nobody in the room, Mark or I or others that heard about it later, questioned whether R&D as a percentage of revenue actually measured what we thought it was measuring. The metric had been used for decades. Every competitor used it. Every Wall Street analyst tracked it. It felt like bedrock. But it wasn't. It was an inherited constraint that had calcified into a rule. R&D as a percentage of revenue tells you about accounting categories. It tells you nothing about what that spending produces, whether the right problems are being attacked or whether innovation output is growing or shrinking. The assumption underneath that metric has never been tested. Nobody had ever asked whether comparing R&D ratios across companies with entirely different business models, entirely different strategies, actually tells you anything meaningful. The cost of that unchecked assumption didn't show up until in the next quarter. It showed up over the following decade. HP's innovation pipeline quietly was drained, and the Fast Company's most innovative recognition we'd earned 3 years running disappeared with it. One inherited metric accepted as fact by an entire room of experienced people making a generational decision. That's what derivative thinking actually cost. Not a bad quarter, but a decade. The people in that room weren't careless, they were experienced. Experience is exactly what makes inherited assumptions feel like facts. The metric felt like a fact. It was a choice nobody remembered making. That's exactly what a first principles question would have caught, but nobody asked it. So, there are 3 skills that run in sequence when we talk about first principles thinking, and each one depends on the one before it. The first, strip the assumption, finds the inherited assumptions baked into how the problem is framed. From there, Test what remains and build up. Takes what survives and builds your solution from what's actually true. And finally, when do you use first principles thinking? It tells you what the process is worth running because it's not equally applied to all problems. Now, if you skip ahead on any of these three, and the later skills do not hold up. You run them in order and they compound. So let's start off with stripping the assumptions. Before you can reason from first principles, you have to know what you're actually working with. Most problems arrive already carrying assumptions in how they're framed. Your first job is to find those assumptions. Now, here are the steps to strip them. 1. Write the problem exactly as it was given to you. If your boss gave you a problem to go solve, or if the marketplace is giving you, quote, a problem that you need to address as a CEO, write the problem exactly as it was given to you. Don't improve the framing yet. Use their words. Second, underline every word that implies a constraint, such as must, or can't, or always, or never, or the only way to. Each one is a possible constraint candidate. 3, ask for each constraint. Is this physically true or is it inherited? Is it a law of physics or is it just some unwritten approach that we or our competitors or our industry or the government even forces us to do? A physical truth holds regardless of what you decide. You cannot move it. An inherited constraint is someone's prior decision that's calcified into a rule. 4, set the inherited constraints aside and restate what remains. That's the real problem. It's usually smaller and easier to solve than what you started with. And you've gotten rid of all of the things that don't matter or that things that you can change. Treat what survives as your design constraints. These are the real boundary conditions. Those are your limitations. Those are your constraints. And take that list into your brainstorming and test every idea against what is on it. If it's not on this list, it's ignored because that means it's not really a physical limitation. It's some arbitrary rule. Do not try to go against the assumptions you've crossed out. Those don't exist. Remove them from your mind. This step takes 20 minutes when you do it honestly. Most teams skip it entirely, then spend months optimizing a solution to the wrong problem. You have to get to the core problem. That's the key. Next up, second step of the 3, test what remains and build up. Not every constraint is an assumption. Some things are actually true. Physics, unit economics, human behavior at scale, customer decision making. The goal isn't to pretend those constraints don't exist. It's to be precise about which actual reality you are dealing with. The steps to test what remains and build up are: 1, take each surviving constraint and push on it. Ask, is this true because it's physically impossible to change, or because changing it would be expensive, unfamiliar, or uncomfortable? Expensive and unfamiliar are not the same as impossible. 2, separate the hard limits from the soft ones. Hard limits are what's actually true, things that hold regardless of how you reframe the problem. Soft limits are negotiable. Label them clearly, make a list. Most teams never make this distinction and treat every constraint as if it were granite. 3, state your hard limits in plain language. Write them down. 1 sentence per hard limit. These are the actual boundaries your solution has to honor. 4, reason forward from what remains. Don't start from where the industry is and work backwards to try to justify it. Now ask, what solution do the hard limits support? That last step is where unexpected solutions come from. When you reason backward from the convention, you arrive at a modified version of the existing answer. The shape is familiar because you started with the original shape. When you reason forward from hard limits, you land somewhere the category did not expect because you weren't anchored to the shape of the existing answer. Solutions built this way often feel very strange at first, trust me. People will question them. You'll be called crazy. You'll be hung out there as somebody who just doesn't get it. You lack experience. You're young, whatever it is. It's BS. That discomfort is usually a signal you have found something real rather than something inherited. That's what reasoning from what's actually true produces, rather than reasoning from what everyone else assumes. Now, there are times when you shouldn't use first principles. It's not going to be beneficial. So before you do this, running the process, ask these 4 questions because you want to make sure the problem is going to fit into first principles thinking. One yes to any of these is enough. Question number 1, has the environment this decision was built for changed significantly? New science, new technologies, new materials, new capabilities, new software. You got AI now. Has the environment this decision, this approach was built for in the past, has it changed significantly? 2, does every solution on the table feel like a variant of the same thing? If you look at your competitors or maybe parallel industries, do they all look the same? 3, is the current approach inherited rather than chosen? Are you really starting from the ground up into fundamentally something new? Or is the approach you're taking been framed and inherited? 4, would a bad assumption here cost you more than an afternoon to find and fix? That basically is telling you that if you don't find that assumption, if a bad assumption is baked into the framing and it comes up 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now and it's a big problem, then you run the process. If all 4 are no, past experience is the right tool. Use it. If any one of them are yes, then you go forward with first principles and you run the steps that we've gone through. Now, that 20-minute assumption strip is cheap. Just go through the assumptions. It takes you 20 minutes. The cost of skipping it isn't. It'll be really, really expensive. Now, let's walk through an assumption reversal exercise. This is an exercise I use when I'm thinking about a problem when I'm too close to it. For this exercise, you'll need a partner. You can't do it yourself. You got to find somebody. Have them watch this video first so they get all the background. They need to know what an inherited assumption looks like before they can spot yours. Once you're both ready, go to the show notes. We'll have all the steps there. Or go over and grab the first principles thinking checklist. It basically summarizes everything that I'm covering in this video. You can get it over at innovation.tools, or you can find a link down below in the description. It gives you both a shared reference for you and your partner before you start. Now, here's how the exercise works. 1, each person brings one real problem they're working on, something current with actual stakes, not just a thought experiment. The problem should be one you've been turning over in your mind without arriving at a satisfying answer. 2, each of you work on your partner's problems, not your own. You are trying to find the assumptions baked into how they've framed the problem. They are doing the work with yours, you're working on theirs. You're not working on your own problem, you're working on your partner's. The reason this works is that you can see their inherited constraints more clearly than you can see your own. You're not inside their problem the way they are. Step 3 of the exercise, each person lists every assumption they can find in the other person's problem. Write them down. Don't argue them. Don't evaluate them. Just surface as many as possible. Quantity matters here. The obvious assumptions are easy, but push past them. 4, take each assumption and reverse it. If the assumption is, oh, this requires a significant budget, the reversal is, what becomes possible if it requires no budget? If the assumption is, the customer will never accept a different format, the reversal is, what would we build if they would? Don't ask whether the reversal is realistic. Ask what it opens up. 5, discuss what the reversals revealed. Not every reversal assumption leads somewhere useful, but one of them usually exposes a constraint that has never as fixed as it felt. You felt it was a law, you felt it was a rule, it was felt something you couldn't violate it. But just by asking the reversal question, it opens up a perspective you didn't see. And the one that you do find, that's the one worth following. The point of the reversal is simple. Some assumptions hold when you push on them, and some don't. You can't tell which is which until you try. Now, let's think about this in the long game. Every time you run this process and find something that didn't hold, you get faster at spotting them. The judgment about when to use it gets sharper. That's what improvement looks like in practice. Not a dramatic flash of insight, but a practiced ability to find the assumption in the room before it finds you. The assumption that costs you most isn't the one you haven't thought of yet. It's the one you stopped questioning years ago. So go find your partner. Run the assumption reversal this week. That's where this starts to become a skill. Not you just watching this video, but it actually becomes a skill. And subscribe for the next episode, because the next one builds on what we talked about today. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.